The WNBA just exposed itself in the most embarrassing way possible, and it all started with one player pointing at a fan and creating a fake controversy that completely backfired. What Alicia Gray did during that playoff game wasn't just dishonest, it revealed exactly why the league is hemorrhaging viewers and why fans are finally done putting up with the disrespect. The security footage tells a completely different story than what Gray claimed, and when you see what actually happened versus what she said happened, you'll understand why this is about to change everything for the league. Before we dive into this shocking footage, if you're tired of players disrespecting fans, hit that like button right now and let me know in the comments what you think should happen to players who lie about fan behavior. This story gets crazier by the minute. Here's what went down during that fateful playoff game between the Atlanta Dream and Indiana Fever. Alicia Gray was having an absolutely terrible night on the court, shooting poorly and getting outplayed at every turn. The Fever fans were doing what home fans do, cheering for their team, and yes, engaging in some light heckling. Nothing vulgar, nothing personal, just standard playoff basketball atmosphere. Then suddenly, Gray stops mid-game, turns to the Indiana section and starts pointing at specific fans while calling security over. The broadcast cameras caught her animated gestures, her angry expression, and security rushing to remove multiple fans from their seats. It looked serious. It looked like something terrible had been said, but that wasn't even close to the truth. What happened next would shock everyone watching. The fans who were removed, a couple who had been sitting peacefully enjoying the game, were brought back to their seats within minutes. Security actually apologized to them. Think about that for a second. When has security ever removed someone for saying something inappropriate and then brought them back with an apology? The answer is never, unless what they said wasn't inappropriate at all. Witnesses sitting nearby reported exactly what was said, and it's almost laughable how minor it was. One fan had shouted, "You're good, Lex, she's not even trying anymore," to Lexi Hull, who was guarding Gray. That's it. That's the entire comment that caused Gray to lose her composure and demand fans be removed from a playoff game. But the story gets even more revealing when you look at what the Dream organization did afterward. Instead of apologizing or clarifying what happened, they doubled down with vague statements about protecting their players from harassment. Different media outlets started reporting completely different versions of what was supposedly said, none of them matching eyewitness accounts. Some claimed it was personal attacks, others said it was threatening language, but nobody could provide any actual quotes or evidence. The inconsistency was so obvious that even neutral observers started calling it out as a fabricated controversy. Meanwhile, the actual fans who were there, the ones sitting in that section, all told the same story. It was basic sports banter that any professional athlete should be able to handle. The timing of this fake controversy couldn't have been worse for the Dream, and better for exposing what's really going on in the WNBA. This happened during the 2024 playoffs when viewership had already dropped by 50% compared to regular season games featuring Caitlin Clark. Think about that statistic for a moment. The playoffs, which should be the most exciting time of the year, were pulling half the audience of regular season games. And instead of trying to win fans back, you have players like Gray creating drama out of thin air and getting paying customers thrown out of games for absolutely nothing. The league wonders why attendance is struggling in certain markets, why merchandise sales are down for most teams, and why the general public is losing interest. This incident is a perfect microcosm of the bigger problem. What makes this even more damaging is the pattern it represents. This isn't an isolated incident of a player overreacting to fans. Throughout the 2024 season and continuing into early 2025, we've seen multiple instances of WNBA players attacking their own fan base. They've called fans racist without evidence. They've complained about which players get the most support, and they've created an atmosphere where attending a game feels like walking on eggshells. Fans are literally afraid to cheer too loudly or show too much enthusiasm for certain players because they might get accused of something they didn't do. The Alicia Gray incident just confirmed what many suspected, that some players will literally make things up to get fans removed if they don't like what's happening on the court. The contrast with how the Indiana Fever handled that same game couldn't be more stark. While Gray was pointing fingers and creating fake drama, the Fever were making history. They were playing without several key players due to injuries, facing elimination pressure, and dealing with their first home playoff game since 2016. Instead of making excuses or blaming fans, they focused on basketball. The crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse was electric, wearing their red Now You Know shirts and creating the kind of atmosphere that makes sports special. The Fever players fed off that energy, played with desperation and urgency, and delivered a performance that had fans fans on their feet the entire game. That's what professional sports should look like, not whatever Gray was doing with her false accusations. Here's where the story takes an even more interesting turn. After the game, when reporters tried to get clarification about what exactly was said to Gray, the responses were telling. The Dream organization refused to provide specifics, hiding behind vague statements about player safety. Gray herself wouldn't repeat what was allegedly said, claiming she didn't want to give it more attention. But if someone really said something inappropriate, wouldn't you want that exposed? Wouldn't you want people to know exactly what kind of behavior you're standing against? The only reason to stay vague is if the truth doesn't support your narrative, and that's exactly what happened here. The security footage and arena audio, which the league has access to but won't release, would easily clear this up. Multiple fans have called for the footage to be made public, knowing it would vindicate the accused fans and expose Gray's lie. But the league has stayed silent, neither confirming nor denying Gray's version of events. That silence speaks volumes. If the footage supported Gray's claims, it would have been leaked immediately to justify the fan ejection. The fact that it hasn't been released tells you everything you need to know about what really happened. Now let's talk about the real damage this does to the WNBA's future. The league has been trying to grow its fan base for decades, and they finally had momentum with the arrival of players like Caitlin Clark, who brought new eyes to the sport. But instead of embracing these new fans, certain players and media members have spent the entire season attacking them. They've complained that the wrong players are getting attention. They've accused new fans of not understanding basketball, and now they're literally making up reasons to kick them out of games. How is that a sustainable business model? How do you grow a league by alienating the very people buying tickets and merchandise? The financial implications are already showing. Early 2025 attendance numbers for teams without Clark or other fan favorites are down significantly. Merchandise sales have plateaued after the initial Clark boom. Television ratings for non-Clark games are back to pre-2023 levels. The league had a golden opportunity to capitalize on the increased attention, and they're blowing it with incidents like this. Sponsors are taking notice too. They invested heavily expecting growth, and instead they're seeing controversy after controversy that has nothing to do with actual basketball. What's particularly frustrating is that this could have been a turning point moment. Gray could have admitted she overreacted in the heat of the moment. The Dream organization could have apologized to the fans who were wrongly ejected. The league could have used this as a teaching moment about sportsmanship and fan relations. Instead, they all doubled down on a lie that everyone could see through. The message sent to fans is clear: your money is wanted, but your presence is barely tolerated. And if a player decides they don't like you, truth doesn't matter. The aftermath on social media was swift and brutal. Fans who had been on the fence about the league's treatment of its supporters made their decision. Season ticket holders posted about not renewing. Casual fans said they were done trying to follow a league that clearly didn't want them. Even diehard WNBA supporters expressed frustration that such an obviously false narrative was being pushed. The hashtag Alicia Gray lied trended for hours before mysteriously disappearing from trending lists, which only fueled more conspiracy theories about the league protecting certain narratives. But here's the thing that should really concern the WNBA leadership. The fans who are leaving aren't just upset about one incident. This was simply the final straw in a season full of disrespect. From the beginning, when certain players and media members complained about which rookies were getting attention, to the constant accusations of racism without evidence, to the dismissive attitude toward new fans, it's been building to this moment. The Alicia Gray incident just crystallized what many already felt: that the WNBA has a fundamental problem with respecting its own fan base. The solution seems obvious, but apparently impossible for the league to implement. Hold players accountable when they lie about fan behavior. Release the footage when false accusations are made. Celebrate all fans instead of gatekeeping who's allowed to support which players. Focus on the actual basketball instead of manufactured drama. But based on how they've handled this situation, none of that seems likely to happen. The league appears more interested in protecting players who lie than fans who did nothing wrong. Looking ahead to the rest of 2025, this incident will be remembered as a defining moment, not because of what actually happened, which was basically nothing, but because of what it revealed about the league's priorities. When given the choice between truth and protecting a player's ego, they chose the ego. When faced with an opportunity to build trust with fans, they chose to gaslight them instead. When presented with clear evidence that a player lied, they chose to pretend it didn't happen. The real tragedy is that there are so many talented players in the WNBA who deserve better than this. Players who respect fans, who understand that professional sports is entertainment. and who would never fabricate accusations to cover for a bad performance. They're being dragged down by the actions of a few bad actors and a league office that won't hold those bad actors accountable. Those players deserve packed arenas and national television coverage, but they won't get it as long as incidents like this keep happening without consequences. The question now is whether the WNBA will learn from this disaster or double down on their mistakes. Early indications aren't promising. There's been no apology to the wrongly accused fans, no clarification of what actually happened, and no accountability for Gray's false accusations. If anything, the league seems to be hoping everyone will just forget about it and move on. But fans don't forget being disrespected, and they certainly don't forget being lied about on national television. If you're as frustrated as I am about players getting away with lying about fans, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because we're going to keep exposing these stories that the mainstream media won't touch. And comment below with your thoughts on what should happen to players who make false accusations against fans. Should they be fined, suspended, or should fans just vote with their wallets and stop supporting teams that don't respect them? The truth is that this controversy exposed something much bigger than one player's lie. It exposed a league that has completely lost touch with what makes sports special. The connection between fans and players, the shared excitement of competition, the mutual respect that makes people want to spend their hard-earned money on tickets and merchandise. When you break that trust, when you treat fans as problems instead of partners, you don't just lose a game, you lose your future. And based on what we saw with Alicia Gray and the Atlanta Dream's handling of this situation, the WNBA might have just lost both.